What's up, everyone? Welcome to Dipped and Toned episode 42.
Dose.
There it is. Nice. We're back. We were back last week. We had some technical difficulties last week, which have still been unexplained.
Yeah.
We don't know why or why they're doing what it is, but we're working on it. We're back though.
Computers, man.
Computers. Yeah. So, anyways, welcome. We apologize for the bit of a hiatus that we've taken. Part of it was for medical leave. The other part of it was because Zorch is in a new space. Look at that.
And see, all this was going to be real smoke and mirrors because initially, I was just going to set up in the new office, which has the same color wall.
Right.
So it was going to feel really samey. But yeah, Sweetwater says the desk that I ordered is, at first they were like, oh, it's going to be like 2 or 3 weeks. And I said, cool. And it's been 2 weeks. And I said, hey, what's the update on that desk? And they said, oh, it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks. And I was like,
oh, great. Yep. Now you're in the proverbial hell of, or the purgatory of shipping where it's like, yeah, we'll get it to you.
Oh man. Wes from Revolta, shout out to Revolta. So they're in this facility with me, and he said that the containers for guitars, like, cause like their guitars are imported, so they're all put on a shipping container and shipped over.
Right.
He said that a container used to be like $3,000 or so to import, and now they're like $25,000.
Oh,
so
what?
Everybody's like, what do we do? Because this isn't just like Revolta's problem. This is the world's problem.
Why? So, why is that what it is?
I don't know. I don't know.
Hey man, it was that damn boat that got stuck in that canal, just screwed everything up.
That Suez boat.
Man, that stupid Suez boat. Listen, I got a cousin. We could have done a Z-drag setup with a winch off the side-by-side. We could have had that thing out in 2 hours, man.
Man, you get a trolling motor on the side of that thing, it'd just turn right around.
I got my K5 Blazer stuck to the frame rails one time worse than that, and we had it out in a few well, it took us a few days, but we got it out.
It does kind of look like I'm on a set. It doesn't, does it look?
It does. I actually had a friend
weird?
in high school. I had a friend in high school that had a K5 Blazer. It was sweet. He called it the Beast, which is a little on the nose if you kind of look back on it. But it was black. He had the doors and the top removed and lifted. He used to drive it to school every day. Even if it was 20 degrees outside, he'd drive it to school every day with no doors on it. And he got it stuck one time. And he left it out there for like a week and a half. And he had to get his dad. I think his dad like ran a construction company or something. And he had to get his dad to bring like a backhoe out and dig it out.
Nice.
Spot he got stuck. Hell yeah, man. Shout
out to the Discord chat.
Yeah. You guys are going off today. This is great.
Sugartooth brings up a really good point. If they'd had a PV boat, they could have taken care of that whole situation.
If PV made a shipping ship, container ship, I think is what the technical term. PV made a container ship, that wouldn't have been a problem.
It's like a flatbed truck, only turn around.
Yep.
With a boat motor on it.
And it's got a big ass trolling motor on it.
That's right. Well,
I think every boat motor is a trolling motor if you really think about it.
I don't know. I'm just pulling out words that I've heard, my grandfather say over
oh man. Well, yeah. So if you guys want to join us live while we're actually taping the episode while the madness ensues, you can join our Patreon link down below. And jump on the Discord server and watch us live. We're live on YouTube right now, but only for the patrons.
That's right.
Not for the rest of y'all. And we've been doing these like post-show hang things on Discord recently, which have been kind of cool. Little Q&A. It's kind of like Clubhouse, but less weird, less self-promotion sort of vibes, and more just kind of hanging out.
Man, I just don't understand any of that. So. Yeah, I
think Clubhouse is kind of done. It was a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
So anyways, what's new with you this week? Moved into the new space. What else?
I wound some pickups. Not my guitar. Matthew at Novo, which for those listening at home, they're literally behind the camera, behind my microphone, through that wall. That's like the wood shop.
I thought you were going to say, like, they're literally behind the camera just watching.
There's right there. Staring at me. The Matthew lent me this showroom guitar. It's a TC, Saris TC, that has been routed for 2 humbuckers, and it had Lollertrons in it. And he's like, here, just take this and put your pickups in there. So I wound 2 humbuckers. The neck, which you heard, sounds pretty good.
Good. Yeah, it sounds good.
I was kind of shocked. But I mean, you know, the recipe for a PAF style humbucker has been well discussed and documented, so I'm not I'm not breaking any new ground. The bridge and this I need to try it in another guitar. It's very bright, but I think part of it might be this Tele bridge. Coupled with the Novo, which Novos are bright guitars anyway. But I think this combination is just a little too much. So I'm gonna pull these out. Dennis wants to play them, so I'm gonna leave them here this weekend. But next week I'm gonna rip them out and put them in my Les Paul and see how they sound.
Now, did you put a cover on that bridge? Because when I saw it, it was uncovered.
I did. I didn't solder it, so it's just kind of squeezed on the base plate. Yeah,
right.
But both of them are PAF style. Wound as even as I could, you know. So for those that have never watched anybody wind a pickup, there's a machine wind, which is machine traversal. So there's like a auto traversal thing that moves the wire back and forth on the coil. Pretty straightforward. That's how Gibson did everything. The Fender method was like a scatter wind or a human hand moving the wire back and forth. And I think when most people say hand wound, that's what they're referring to. I don't like that term because to me that I think that makes
it's
you
like
think
you're winding
literally 5,000 turns around a bobbin, which is impossible. But both of these, I didn't have my little auto traversal rig set up, so I did it by hand. So they're kind of like scatter wound humbuckers, which I think is contributing to the brightness. But the bridge pickup, I don't know. Not crazy about it. So.
Is it like a presence bright or is it a harsh bright?
It's a presence. It's like a real just like uninhibited clarity. And but what's weird is when I brought my Les Paul here the other day and compared it, and the output, they're actually hotter than what's in my Les Paul. It's just because I expected it to be, you know, a little bit more crunchy, but it's not. Right. It's just bright. So I think, I don't know, I'm going to mess with it, but I have a ton of magnets and all sorts of stuff. And one thing that's interesting too, and I had never noticed this, but it makes sense. Novo, if they have a Tele style bridge or whatever, it's an F spacing.
Right.
So the pole pieces don't line up with the strings, except for in the middle.
You should explain F spacing.
So F spacing is Fender spacing, and that means from low to high E, the distance between the strings. That's the, you know, your string spacing and your pole piece spacing. So on a Gibson instrument, traditionally the humbucker pole piece spacing from center of the high E center to the low E is 49.2 millimeters. But on a Fender guitar, if you need to put a humbucker in that style with that style bridge, it's 53 millimeters. So it's quite a bit wider. So the poles don't really line up with the strings, which I don't think is affecting the brightness, but it does affect the string balance, you know, when you're playing string to string.
Nice. I can't wait to try them out.
Yeah.
Gonna be up there next week, actually.
Yeah. NAMM time.
NAMM. You're not going to NAMM, are you?
No. Okay. I would if there was anything interesting going on, and I don't think there is. But anyway, we can get into that. How was your week?
Week was pretty good. Got back from a little beach vacation last week, which is fine. We're not beach people, but we went to go. This was the first time seeing my grandparents in like a year and a half. Since before COVID. So we went to go hang out with them. But doing much better. Out of the sling. Back to playing guitar again.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have 100% range of motion right now, but I'm good enough to play. My Driftwood title caster is about to be done. I'm going to be picking that up next week at NAMM. And for those of you that don't know, I've talked about it on the podcast a little bit, But so there's a guy named Chris Alvarado down in Destin, Florida. And Chris is an acoustic guitar builder. He's a luthier. He builds amazing acoustics. And he's getting into the electric world. And this is his first production electric. It's a Tele style with a P90 in the neck. I'm trying to find a picture I can drop in the chat here. So he basically, I've known Chris since I was 16 years old. He's kind of like a family friend. And he's been making videos on his YouTube channel. They just started making a YouTube channel not too long ago and documenting the build. He's also building an acoustic out of a 3,000-year-old piece of spruce, which is pretty sick. But anyway, there's the update, the picture where it sits right now.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a beta test. He built this for me to sort of tell him everything that needs to change about it because he's not hip to building electric guitars, but he's damn good at building acoustic guitars. So yeah, I'm excited, man. And I'm incredibly honored to be the chosen one for his beta testing of this guitar.
You're the chosen one.
You're the chosen one. So yeah, there it is. Pretty excited about it. I don't typically like super flamey tops, but I think that burst on there looks pretty tasty.
Yeah. It's quilty. It's not as like tiger stripes.
Yeah.
So it's got more of a quilt look, but it's not. Some quilt looks too, I don't know, phony or something.
And this one has some nice features, which is like the control plate is actually recessed, so the control plate will be flush with the body, and we're doing no pick guard. Originally, he was going to do like a quilted maple pick guard on that, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't want to do that. It's going to be a little too much wood on the front. Yeah. So yeah, we're doing it with just no pick guard, and it's funny too because we have very different philosophies on guitars. Like I love relic guitars. I love guitars that are worn in. Chris hates relic guitars, and I told him, I was like, look, man. You should know that I'm gonna like play this thing, and it's gonna get the shit beat out of it because that's just how I play guitars. I'm not precious about my guitars. And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Is it nitro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Full nitro, and natural back. So it's gonna be cool.
The only thing that I'm not crazy about are those abalone inlays.
I think it's cool. Because it is different than what you would normally see,
right?
But it's an acoustic builder building an electric for the first time, and there's little touches like that come through, which is cool.
Yeah. What is it? Just gonna have a normal Tele control plate, just a 3-way?
Normal Tele 3-way switch, P90 in the neck, Tele in the bridge. Interesting features. There's two really interesting features about this guitar. One is his neck joint, and he's made videos on this. You can go watch it on Driftwood Guitars on YouTube. So he developed like an indexing sort of design for the neck joint. So the neck actually indexes into the body, and then he's got some recessed like stainless steel threaded inserts. And then he's bolting the neck onto the guitar with like M6 screws or something like that. So it's not a wood screw going into wood. It's like an actual machine screw going into a threaded insert. And it's super tight tolerance. It's CNC'd. So it should have a really, really strong connection between the neck and the body. And the other interesting feature, and this is, I think, why he wants me to beta test this guitar, is because there's no truss rod.
Oh, really?
All. There's a carbon D tube that goes down the neck. And so he partnered with this company. They do like aerospace components and like race car stuff, I think. And essentially it's a carbon like rod that is in the shape of a D, and it's hollow. So it's a hollow tube, and that runs the length of the neck. So essentially what he's doing is strengthening the neck. He typically uses carbon fiber rods in his acoustics, but with a truss rod.
Right.
This he's trying out no truss rod with the strength of the D tube and having a good portion of that neck be hollow. The idea being it's going to be more resonant or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to be taking this out and gigging it. I want to see how it handles like temperature change and You know, some people are commenting like, well, that's ridiculous. Why would you not do a truss rod? You can't adjust the neck. And I understand that. I also think that if you build the neck properly and you've got such a strong piece of material in there holding it in position, you shouldn't need a truss rod, but we're going to find out.
Right. People in the chat are talking about Novo. Someone said, doesn't Novo do something similar? But they use little pins to kind of the neck pocket in the neck has little routes for these little pins that kind of get the neck right in the perfect position.
Yeah,
but
just to index it.
Yeah, nothing like that so far as the joint. But yeah, that's interesting. The lack of truss rod is I don't know that. I know it works, you know.
Yeah.
You know, there've been a lot of guitars throughout history that just don't have truss rods.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, I notice with all of my guitars them needing an adjustment every season. You know, like just like a quarter turn, an eighth of a turn, just a little turn to get it back where it should be because they move.
Yeah, and that's actually a struggle that I've had in this new space is because I'm in a room, like an upstairs room. It's been difficult, and this house is built in 72, 73. So it's been difficult to like keep the temperature consistent up here. And so my guitars have had a tough time. Like my Solus, I went to pick it up and play it the other day, and it was like the neck had completely shifted and it was unplayable because the neck had moved so much. And I had to and I never have to adjust truss rods on my guitars. But I had to pull it out and like adjust the neck to get it back to where is actually playable. So yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see how this Titlecaster holds up. So yeah, that's it. Oh, and I think I found a studio builder.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Is it some guy that you look under a tree and you're like, hey man, can you build studios? He's like, yeah,
it's this dude I met at Home Depot. He was picking out paint and I was like, hey man, just a weird hunch. You ever build studios? He's like, I'm sure I can figure it out. It's like, sweet.
Nice.
Why don't you come on over to the house? No, I found we had a preliminary phone call the other night. I walked him through on FaceTime, showed him the basement, talked about what we want to do. Guy out in LA. He used to live in Atlanta. He's built several very, very nice studios over the years, including Rick Beato's studio. Oh. And Rick's studio has held up very, very well. So, yeah, I think I'm going to fly him out from LA sometime in August and have him like spend a day or two out here, just like walking through the space, looking at it, starting to put some plans together. And the idea right now, which, you know, plans change, but the plan right now is to start the build out sometime in like early fall. So maybe September, October timeframe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That's exciting.
Very exciting.
Really exciting. You were talking about your Solus and talking about the pick guard on that guitar, and it reminded me I'm getting a new pick guard for my Solus. So
what are you getting?
So I was looking at it the other day, and I was like, you know, it's got the brass saddles, and you know the Telly bridge thing, and then you know the stainless or whatever that material is. I guess it's steel. Telly bridge plate. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a gold pick guard that was like an anodized gold pick guard that was all beaten through? And Devin was like, well, we don't do anodized gold, but we do aluminum and we paint it gold and then we can wear it.
Yeah.
And so they're making that for me. It might be done today or Monday. So
well, the nice thing is too, you can just walk over there and grab it.
Yeah. Well, I was over there just talking to the guys. One of the guys that works at the shop now, he used to work for Stan Winston Studios. So he did special effects and worked in a lot of cool movies. And
that's cool.
Very fun to talk to. But we were just talking, and Kelly walked up and she's like, "Hey, how distressed do you want this?" And she had it, and I was like, "Oh man." It's dangerous. This has been really hard because I get to see every guitar before, you know, Matthew posts it online. Like, oh man. But
dude, you should start like an underground like Reddit thread that's like Novo leaks or something like that.
They would kill me.
Oh yeah, dude, you'd be out on your ass faster than I don't know. I can't finish the rest of that statement. Yeah. All right, we have a rig to dip or what?
We do.
Take me there.
Bum, 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 bum. One picture. And two picture.
Ooh.
So this is
Wow.
This is from, yeah. I thought there's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot to unpack here. This is great.
This is from Kyle Reagan. He says, dip my Bogner Firebird rig. So what we got here is a 2012 Gibson Firebird. I don't know what number that is. It looks like it's just the 2 pickup one.
A 5. Yeah, that's a 5.
Oh, he's in the chat. Perfect.
Nice.
A Bogner Alchemist, which is a cool amp, and it's something interesting we could talk about. A 2x12 cab with Celestion Cyper 65. I don't know what those are.
I don't either.
Super 65. He's got a Schmidt Array board that's got a bunch of stuff on it. Zcat Big Reverb, Boss RE20, Aleca digital delay, MXR Phase 90, the TC Electronic Third Dimension Chorus, Ibanez 850 Fuzz, Pictronics Fat Drive, Noble's ODR Mini, Boss ST1, and Favaretti's Yellow Cab OD. And yeah, it's a cool rig. And by the way, his pedal board is like
orange.
A traffic orange.
Safety cone orange.
That's it, yes.
Yeah, that's straight up. That is exactly what that color is. Nice. All right, cool. Let's start with the guitar. God, I love a Firebird.
A white Firebird, too.
A white Firebird. Reverse Firebird 5. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
How would you describe the tone of a Firebird and a Firebird pickup?
Oh. Wow. Okay. It's the closest thing to a Strat that Gibson has ever made.
Yeah.
Tonally. And if you would never think that by looking at that guitar, because there's nothing in common with the Fender Stratocaster. Not the shape, the scale length, the pickup design, nothing. But those Firebird pickups have a real nice single coil kind of thing going on. Now, it's not a straight up, it does, you're not going to mistake it for a Strat I don't think. But in terms of Gibson's lineup, that's the best thing I could point to, at least with mine, the Heather Mist one that I have. That neck pickup gets real stratty, and they're pretty low output pickups as well. They're not very hot, which is also really nice. So yeah, that's kind of how I would put it. If you're like a diehard single coil person and you like offsets, you should check out Firebird, or at least Firebird pickups, because they do a thing that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've never really dove into, the Firebird pickup. But I love the shape. And now that I'm winding pickups, now I made 2. Now that I'm starting to learn more about the construction of everything.
Now that I've become a pickup winder myself, I've kind of just been kicking around the idea of...
I'm trying not to be like that. A lot of people are already messaging me like, hey, that pickup sounds great. Can I order one? It's like, no, let me...
Guys,
learn what I'm doing.
Yeah, just because he did it once doesn't mean he's good at it. Okay?
No, that's
very
true.
You got to give the man a little time to work his kinks out, right?
Yeah. But yeah, cool guitar. Cool guitar.
Pedal board. Well, one more thing on the Firebird. If you've never played one, ergonomically, they're weird. They're weird to play. They're real long. Weird. They're weird. They're like shifted to the left. You have to put the strap button in a specific place or else they neck dive real bad. I mean, and that's because the guitar was designed by a car designer. Actually pulling it full circle, the man that designed the Firebird is also the man that designed the famous yellow checker cab. Speaking of the yellow cab OD on the pedal there, I don't know if that's intentional.
What?
But yeah, that's a nice little history connection there. So let's move on to this pedal board. So the Schmidt Array boards. Schmidt Array boards are super nice.
It's a lot.
I have one gripe with them, and people ask me sometimes, well, like when I did the studio board with Mason, I got a lot of comments like, why didn't you do Schmidt Array? Schmidt Array is the best boards. They're great boards. They're fantastic. They're pretty heavy.
Oh my gosh, they're so heavy.
They're really heavy. And so if you are trying to travel, or especially if you're trying to fly with one, I mean, I know people do it, but I would like to know how much this particular board weighs, because I can't imagine it's not light. But they're beautiful boards, man. They're incredibly well built. I like the layout of them, but yeah, the weight's a concern for me.
It's pretty neat how that, because they have like a flap on the top so you can put stuff underneath. But this one's cool because, for those listening, it's a long Schmidt array. It's not like the smaller ones like you see the guys on that pedal show using. This one's pretty long.
Yeah.
And it's about the width of like a 2x12 cap. And on the right side, there's a cutout for his mission expression control.
Yeah.
That's neat. I've not seen that.
Yeah. It's super cool.
But yeah, also, go ahead.
I was going to say, also shout out to the Bbe Sonic Maximizer. I used to have that pedal on my board, and I took it off years ago. And we've talked about it on the show before, but it's one of those things that I should have left it on the board. It's like, it was an always on thing. And it just is like sort of like lifting a blanket off of your guitar sound in a way. I'm surprised I don't see more of those on boards. I think they're kind of overlooked, maybe because people don't really know what they are or what they do, but they're cool.
I feel like the days of the Sonic Maximizer, when you have a lot of buffered pedals and, before everything was true bypass and stuff, true bypass, that's not a fix. But when you have a long signal path and not the greatest bypasses on all your pedals, it really made a difference. But now with better bypasses and buffers and things, I don't think it's as noticeable, but it all depends on your setup and what you're trying to accomplish. And Kyle just said in the chat that with the case for it, it weighs 65 pounds.
And here's the thing, like, that board's not that big. Like,
no.
For that board to weigh 65 pounds with the like, that's a heavy board. You couldn't fly with that. There's no way. You'd get charged an overage fee every time you flew, which are pretty substantial depending on the airline.
Yeah.
But, still, I don't want to rag on Schmidt Array. I think that's the only gripe I have with them is the weight, but that's it.
Yeah. Let's go through some of this. So I forgot to mention that he had the Bbe Sonic Stomp. Zcat Big Reverb, not familiar with that.
Me neither.
I think it's above that expression control there. The RE20, that thing's awesome. The Boss RE20.
I love those, man. So the RE20 basically is the pedal version of an RE201 Space Echo.
Yeah.
Which is one of the coolest tape echoes of all time. I have the Multi Echo from Multivox, which is kind of their take on the 201. Four-head tape echo with a built-in spring tank. It's cool, man. You can do a lot of cool stuff with a 201.
Yeah.
Yeah. So love the pedal.
Aleca digital delay. Not familiar with that one. It's another orange pedal here.
Got a thing going on though.
Yeah. We got some digging the orange, which I appreciate that.
And the Phase 90. The Phase 90, yeah, you got some nice things going on here.
And the Ibanez 850.
Right.
So
overall, you've got how many stages of overdrive? 1, 2, 3, 4 different overdrive pedals.
Yes.
And when the Ibanez, what's the Ibanez thing on the?
So the Ibanez 850 is a fuzz. It's like a big muff from a circuit standpoint. So it's a big muff style fuzz.
Interesting that you have it after the overdrives.
Yeah, I mean, some people like slamming it that way.
Maybe. Nice. So, and then onto the amp. Let's talk about this amp. This is the first Bogner we've had on the show.
Yes. So, are you familiar with the Alchemist at all?
No.
So the Bogner Alchemist is pretty interesting. So this was, do you remember when Line 6 made that, I think it was like the DT20. It was that amp that you could change all the preamps and the power amps, and it was all like it wasn't modeling. It was actually analog things, and you could change everything, and it was small. They were pretty cool. And the Alchemist is a collaboration between Bogner and Line 6. So Line 6, I think, produced it, but Reinhold Bogner designed it. And it's a 2-channel thing. It has a boost, but it also had some built-in effects as a delay, like a ducking analog and a tape delay sound with a tap button on the face, which is awesome.
Cool.
And also has a plate Hall and spring reverb built in. And you could switch it from depending on the model, they had switchable wattages. But, they actually sound pretty wicked. I think a lot of people kind of they doubt anything Line 6 makes, or at least from a few years ago. I think they've got out of that. You know, but back when this was coming out, I think people were still like, oh, it's like a spider with tubes in it, you know, and because this is a full fat tube amp. This is not, you know, it has a lot of things going on that aren't necessarily tube, like the delay and stuff. But yeah, every channel has some switches for like clean or crunch, bright, deep, and then the gain channel has like a punch, a bright, a mid shift. So it has a lot of tonal variation. But I remember playing this when it was out and thinking, you know what, this sounds pretty wicked. And now they're pretty cheap. So if you can find one and you could try it, you can probably score it for, you know.
I like Bogner stuff. I really do. I've never owned one. I almost bought a. Oh God, this was years ago. This is when I was shopping for and I ended up with my divided by 13, my FTR. I played a used Bogner. Oh God, it was a combo.
Shiva?
112. It might have been a Shiva, and it had a road case, and it was like ready to go. And I liked that. I was like, oh, this could be a really good option because I just landed that gig touring with the Muddy Mags at that point, and I needed a good like road amp.
Yeah.
And it was the Bogner stuff's really cool. A friend of mine, Rod Castro. Who's a session guy, touring guy out in LA, plays with a lot of the big pop acts out there. He tours a lot with the Kemper, but his one amp that he does everything with is a Bogner. And it's actually like a signature Bogner that he's done with Reinhold. Really? Yeah, it's like a blend of two different amps. I have to touch base with Rod and see exactly what it. Need to circle back, touch base, and we'll re-up and see what's going on with that. But yeah, the Bogner stuff's really cool.
Yeah, I had a friend that had a Shiva and a head. And I think both of the transformers are on one side of the amp, so when you picked it up, it would just go like, because I mean it's like a JCM 800 size amp head. It's huge,
right? Yeah,
and with both transformers over there, it's like impossible to carry. You need like Vox, handles on the side,
right?
But I think they made the Goldfinger, and they went through a phase of like making small like combos that were kind of like weird, and there was stuff that was based off like brown face deluxes and stuff. I've played a bunch of them, and most of them have always impressed me. But the Shiva, I think, is like that one's the one to get if you're going to get one. So.
Yeah, they're cool, man, and they make great pedals too.
Yeah,
I tried a few of their overdrives and their fuzzes. The ones that have the Neve transformers in them, the RNDI transformers, and they're really good. They sound good. So yeah, props for the Bogner, man. I dig it. I'm surprised. That's one of those brands that I'm surprised that more people. I feel like I just don't see a lot of players playing Bogner stuff. I mean, there's a handful of people out there, but they're not like one of the premier brands, which is weird to me because they're really good. Reinhold's been on the scene for a long time out in LA. Started off, I believe, like modding Marshalls for like all the guys out in the LA scene back in the 80s. And I think he was one of the first like quote unquote boutique builders out there.
Yeah.
Right around the time, like I think Mike's, and I could be wrong about this. I'm working off of very distant memory, so take my words with a grain of salt here. But I think it was not long after like Mike Soldano started doing his thing out in the valley that Reinhold started, producing stuff. But someone in the chat or comments can correct me on that.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Like it ebbs and flows, and things, fall in and out of favor, but it doesn't change the fact that something's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a time, it's like you saw Bogners everywhere and, diesels and things, with gain kept getting higher and higher and you see, trends happen. And then,
that's an interesting discussion on the guitar trends that we've seen come and go.
Yeah. The guitar hype train.
Yeah. Let's dip this rig here. So let me scroll back up and take a look at and keep up with the chat here. All right. So for me, you're getting some strong points for the Firebird. You're getting some strong points for the Bogner too. Even though I've never played one, it's a cool head. It's a unique amp. A lot of options. It is breaking my rule of like more knobs than what is my rule? I used to have a rule with amps.
Changes like
if it has more knobs than something.
Watts.
Yeah, if it has more knobs than watts, it's not. The board is super cool too. It's really clean. I'm trying to think if I would add anything to the board here, and I don't think I would, man. I mean, for that rig and for what you're doing, I mean, I feel like that's pretty solid. That's a pretty solid setup. I really like this. Also, props for the orange gaff tape on your cab. So when you're on listen, that was a game changer for me. The first time I put gaff tape on a cab, because it doesn't matter who's miking your cab. It just tells them, hey, here's where I want the mic.
Right.
Because if you don't have that, dude, you'll have sound guys. I've had guys put 50, like I've been on several gigs where a sound guy who's deaf, because he's been doing sound his whole career, takes a 57 and has one mic on my amp and puts it right on the dust cap of the speaker.
Oh man,
and it's like, bro, that sounds bad. You're gonna make me sound bad.
So once you be heard,
just put a little square, little 90-degree angle of gaff tape on your cab, and it just lets the engineer know, hey, this is where I'd like the mic, please.
Yeah,
props
Simple.
for that. I'm gonna give this rig 8.8 shoyles.
Nice. Yeah,
solid rig.
I think I would pare down maybe a few of the overdrives and maybe get something else interesting in there, because I feel like, I'm not sure what that taxi pedal is. I mean, based off the description you gave me, it's probably Tube Screamer derived. And I think the Fat Drive from Pictronics is kind of Tube Screamery, and the ST1 is a Tube Screamery thing. So yeah, I might like mix it up. The ODR1's not, it's a different thing. Even though it's green, it's not a Tube Screamer. People.
I think you could get away with 2 of those overdrives in the fuzz.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I would mix it up, but I think it's a solid 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at us.
There we
in
go.
The same ballpark once again. We've yet to have dude, we need a controversial rig. We need to find someone's rig that one of us loves and the other one just hates.
Well, how about this? Everybody, if you're a patron and you've submitted a rig, make up a new one. Just take things and smush it together and make a rig that will make Rhett and I fight. Like a rig that I would love and he would hate, or vice versa.
Dude, we're trying. We need some beef on the show here. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, beef your rig or something like that. There you go.
Oh, the Pictronics Fat Drive is a CMOS. Okay, so that's different.
Nice.
But you can make. You know what? You can use a CMOS chip to make a Tube Screamer. So I don't know.
Yeah, doesn't everyone know that? My God.
I knew that.
It's like the most basic thing ever. My God, it's like the first thing you learn when you pick up your electric. It's like, just so you know, you can use a CMOS chip to make a Tube Screamer.
Anyway.
So you brought up an interesting point with trends here. The guitar world, I think specifically the electric guitar world, can be a somewhat trendy space.
Oh.
Trendy in terms of brands, in terms of rigs, in terms of styles of playing. I've definitely seen it in my first 10 years of playing guitar professionally, specifically around the church world.
Yeah.
A lot of trend setters and trend followers in that world over the years. I remember when Gretsch, if you were going to play worship music, you had to have a Falcon.
Oh,
and if you didn't have a Falcon, it was like, dude, you just weren't, you couldn't do your thing on stage. And then it was like when Duesenberg hit the scene, everyone and their brother sold their Gretches to go get a Star Player TV. Right? And then Dennis had a thing going on there for the early Fano stuff was really hot in that scene for a while too. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. What other trends have you noticed, and what trends have stuck around or you think are going to stick around for the long run here? Man,
I don't know. This is something we should have planned ahead. I mean, guitars, you definitely see especially with the praise and worship community, and that's not a community I live in, but there was a time where every image of that was like a Veritas guitar. Or, something like that. I mean, I think some things are here to stay, like Strymon, being a staple for the majority of people. You got to have the Holy Trinity of the big units for those sort of boards.
That can be kind of a controversial thing, though. I know I've gotten some heat on the Strifecta thing.
Strifecta.
People roasting me on the JHS show one time. I had people roast my pedal board, and that was one thing that a lot of people gave me shit for. Oh Jesus, was the Strifecta. But I get it, right? It's kind of the idea of who really needs all 3 of those giant multi-effect kind of powerhouses? I mean, even on my timeline, I use typically like 4 of the presets of the sounds. I use the tape sound, the Bucket Brigade sound, the digital sound, and occasionally like the lo-fi sound. But that's it. I don't even touch the rest of the pedal.
Man, it's interesting. I think because the majority of the world I live in now is like curated by YouTube and Instagram.
Right. As it should be. Okay?
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. So it's funny. Like the things I see, and maybe hype is not the right word, just like what trends for moments are like, especially on YouTube, and not calling any names, but cheap guitars. Like there's always like that one Amazon brand of the moment that people go ape shit over, and like people, oh, they're really great, the Firefly guitars or whatever. It's like, oh, they're great and they're $100. It's like, no, they're not, and shut up. But like everyone talks about that sort of thing.
I jumped on the cheap guitar. I jumped on the cheap guitar bandwagon a few months ago. You know, when I went and bought that.
But a Dan Electro is not like a crappy.
You're talking about like $100 Amazon.
Yeah, like a $200 semi-hollow guitar. Like there's no way. You know, like if it has a truss rod, let's hope it works. Like those sort of things, or like the trends of like, did you hear Amazon's making pedals? A, no, they're not. B, who cares? You know, like those sort of things. God, I've been having a hard week, and I'm letting it all out on this.
It's all right, man. This is it. This is what we're here for. You know, we're ranty, and you know, this is what we do. But Philip from the 40 Watt podcast, friend of the show, says, "This is my hot take. It's not there yet, but it's coming back. Big amps are coming back. Captor X, Auxbox, Iron Man are game changers for folks that want to play big amps." That's interesting. I think not. I think the days of the big amps are numbered. I think they are. In terms of younger players that are interested in like the next generation of players that are going to be gigging and traveling and doing their thing, I think as the modeler game gets better and the plug-in game continues to become more ubiquitous in the guitar world, the days of the big amps, man, I think are numbered. Because logistically, I just had rehearsal this week with Noah. We're playing in Minnesota on Saturday, and I'm flying for the gig, thankfully, because of I'm still not 100%, so I don't want to ride 18 hours in the van one way. But what I did was I sent my rig up with them in the trailer, and I've got my Bad Cat head in a case, I've got my 212 cab in a road case, and 3 guitars in the vault. And that rig is just going to live up in South Carolina for the foreseeable future. It could live up there for the next couple of years, because I'm getting tired of lugging like big amps around to rehearsals and gigs and stuff. And especially when you have things like the Helix or the Quad Cortex or the Kemper or the Axe Effects, or hell, maybe your damn iPad or something. Right. And they sound really good. I don't know. I don't know that I see the next generation of players really adopting the big tube amp thing.
Right. It's so interesting because like you see amp companies making big amps and thriving. Like Two Rock arguably makes some of the loudest amps in the boutique industry. Right. And people are crazy about them. I know, Philip has a Two Rock, and I do too. And even though mine's 40 watts, it's the loudest 40 watts I've ever heard, next to my Z-Rack that I had.
Right.
But, I think for the next generation, the modeling thing is going to be the thing. And not because, they don't know any better. It's like the old gear is still here. It's just that is what they're creating with, and gives them the tools to express themselves. And I think it makes sense. But you're right. From a gigging standpoint, I've always said if I had to gig, like really gig, I would be taking a modeling setup.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense for the when you're watching a performance, as long as it sounds good, no one's going to care. Taking all that other stuff is for you, the player, and not for the audience. So
right.
That's like a hard pill to swallow. But I mean, it's never been easier to gig with big amps. And to that end, he's absolutely right. Using the attenuators or the speaker, things.
The boxes, the load boxes, and you're right, and I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, tube amps are going to die off and nobody's going to be using tube amps in 10 years. This is not the case. But I don't personally know that we're going to see a resurgence where, and what I'm talking about is like even beyond 2-Rock, because the reality is, yes, brands like 2-Rock and Divided by 13 and like the boutique amps distribution line of Friedman and Soldano and Morgan, like they're doing really well. But you have to remember, like, their market share of like the broader guitar market in general is like this big. Yeah. And so if we're talking about trends and like trends across the guitar world, people that are gigging and at-home players and like what's kind of the next thing, I just don't think I see big traditional tube amps coming back. I think it's going to be more along the lines of like a hybrid setup, like a tube preamp power, kind of like what Rev is doing, right? Yeah. Where it's that combined with IR modeling and cab simulation, or it's just going to be modelers basically running everything. Because the reality is, you're right, man, from a logistical perspective, it's just easier, especially if you're running in-ears, which a lot of artists and bands are, as the cost of in-ear rigs start to come down. You know, it makes a lot of sense. With that said, it felt really great to be playing like an old school analog rig this week. Right. Like I'm not using a Capture X or anything. I'm just miking a cab, and it felt good. Yeah. Well, and Philip just reminded me, Fender just announced the Tone Master Super Reverb, I'm excited about that. Which is very cool. And he says, you know, still calling it a big amp even with the solid state weight drop. But the thing about that is also you can play it at like a watt or something. Yeah, and you can go DI out on the back. You can do all the stuff that the Tone Master can do. It's a modeler, you know, like it's definitely an amp, but I do think that is where the industry's heading. And like I'm curious. I want to see who else is going to hop on this bandwagon in a good way. And it's funny because, like, speaking of hypes and getting back on that, remember when Korg announced the new tube? Mm-hmm. Like, that was all anyone talked about. And they made those like little new tube heads that had like the little tube, and I played one and it sounded really good, but that just kind of disappeared. And I don't know if the industry, or well, the customer base, or you know, the community at large kind of torpedoed that and said we don't want, we want EL84s. It was probably too soon. I think if they debuted that now, it would be a different sort of thing. Because when did the new tube come out? I mean, that was years ago. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember. It feels like 10 years ago. Yeah, and at that time, modeling was still very like taboo and like not cool. I think the idea of the new tube is that, you know, it's some sort of replacement of a tube. You know, it's a triode sort of thing. Right. And what's interesting is you can just buy them. Like I could buy them and put them in a pedal, and you know, that's an interesting idea. I don't see 2017. I'm looking back on Google to see like articles. I don't know when it became like what B&H Photo Korg new tube. Yeah, I just saw B&H pop up. What are they doing? Oh, they have like headphone amps. Okay, that's probably what it is. Got it. But you know, I'm curious to see where that thing goes, where tube alternatives go. Because, I mean, talk about something that's going to die within our lifetime. Well, maybe not. For sure. No, it will. It'll definitely die. Tubes are not going to be around forever. They're just not. I mean, you can't, to produce them and manufacture them, you can't do it here in the States. Like, it can't happen. So it's going to go back. It's staying in Russia and China. And, you know, there are still other industries that use tubes. We've talked about this before, but they're just not that. So I don't know. That's a whole other discussion of like, should you buy all the tubes now? Should you start stockpiling? But I don't think we're there yet. Well, another thing that talking about like hype and trends, maybe, like kind of piggybacking off the Strymon thing. A lot of people for a while had like every multi effect, and it was all MIDI switchable and all that. And I feel like that we're kind of going back. I mean, because it's a roller coaster, right? It goes up and down. That we're going back to the more classic, no preset
kind of thing. That, I mean, not that the presets and all that are ever going to go away, but I feel like players, they get all that stuff and they go, this is awesome. And then they pull that old like delay or fuzz or whatever out of the closet and they plug a few pedals up and they, oh, this is absolutely all I need. And then they make a pedal board with all that and all the other stuff goes away. And then some new modeling thing comes out and they make it all over again. But I feel like in the pedal industry, for me, like my whole philosophy has always been, I'm only going to sell what I like. Very, you know, snakes and sparkler firework salesman, Joe Dirt kind of mentality. But I think people have latched onto that in the community at large.
Right.
Like, I was nervous with the Oracle. I was like, this is not what anyone expects. Right. Because everyone expects every single feature. Does it have a MIDI sync? Does it have, you know, subdivisions? Does it have all this stuff? And it's like, it doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have nothing. It doesn't even have trim pots inside it. So the success of that has shown me that there's definitely a market that's bigger than just the people who are older than us, who you know, live and die by the analog man type of pedal builder. Like they're wanting that classic thing from new companies. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. I think that's going to become like one of the next trends in the pedal community.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it is like the guitar world is such a wide spectrum of people and players and sounds and what people are looking for. And that's what's interesting about these trends is you can have a trend sweep like one whole section of the guitar world that like another guitar player might not even ever hear about. They might not ever know about, right? I mean, like I'm not a metal guy, so I'm completely unplugged from the trends and things that are happening in the metal world or extended range guitars or progressive rock world and things like that, because it's just not my scene. It's just not where I live. And the reality is the type of guitar stuff that I like and the sounds that I like are the really old school, you know, kind of things. And there's not a ton happening in that space right now. I think the biggest areas of progression and the newest trends that are happening in guitar right now are based in that progressive rock metal scene, or in sort of what was, you know, a big playing trend of the past couple of years, like the Instagram neo soul, like pickup jazz thing. Yeah. Which is cool. I mean, that's that's been really big with the younger players, you know, the people that are like 10 years younger than me in their early 20s. That's been big for them. And so you're going to see a big portion of the guitar community that came up in that kind of sound and with watching those kind of players and following those people on Instagram pick up those type of instruments and go for that kind of sound, which a lot of them are going like DI straight into a DAW, or they're using like a lot of modulation and things like that to get some really interesting guitar sounds. And they don't even own an amp, right? They've never even owned a tube amp or anything like that, which again, it's not a bad thing, right? I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, you're not a real guitar player unless you've had a pair of 6V6s, you know, heating up your 112. I don't know who Tilly's talking to in there, but she's having a good time.
All good.
Yeah. So yeah, I just, it's interesting, man. I think, okay,
fine. It's fine.
Like, but yeah, that's, now I've lost my train of thought, but there you go.
That's fine. Well, and here's one thing that I'm always curious about, like with the younger players who haven't experienced that, who haven't like got to sit down with a loud tube amp and just nothing crazy, just play an E chord. Like that's a visceral experience. And I mean, do you think eventually that whole thing is just going to go away?
No,
because these people don't know the joy of it.
You've never known the joy of a 100-watt Marshall. I don't think it's going to go away. It's not going to go away because I don't think the music that was created with those tools is going to go away.
Well, no.
Right? I don't, at least not in our lifetime, I don't see people like not listening to Led Zeppelin anymore.
Right.
Even younger generations.
They're all about the Greta Van Fleet.
Well, right, but that's the thing is like no matter how you find it, right? You can, if you are a music nerd or you're into music, right? You're gonna naturally find your way back to these things. I mean, we all did, right?
Right.
Like you find your thing that you really like, and you're like, well, who influenced this person? Where did their sound come from? And you find that thing. And with Spotify now, like all the algorithms recommending stuff to you, it's like inevitable. So,
and I just had this thought, and we can't talk about this today. This is too deep, and maybe we could talk about this next week. Have you found music happening today, especially in the rock and guitar centric realm, that have as good a playing and as good as songs as stuff from, a few generations back, or a few generations, like a generation back? Because, like, without going down this road, I was driving to work and had some like modern, like blues rock playlist, whatever, on Spotify, like happen. I was like, I'll try that. And every song, even some like well-known players, I was just kind of like, skip. Like there's nothing happening that's pulling me in and making me go, oh, this is cool. But I feel that about a lot of like more pop-centric guitar music and things like that. Like that pulls me in and it's more interesting. And I don't know if I'm just fatigued by it all, but this is something we should touch on because I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Yes, there is still stuff being made that pulls me in. But I understand what you're saying, in that like you kind of have to sift through the fluff to get to the good stuff.
Well, a lot of people in the chat are mentioning a lot of bands, but some of these bands have been around for like 15, 20 years. Like new bands.
Yeah,
new bands.
Kings of Leon, Black Keys. Like, yeah, guys, that was like 2005 to 2010. We're talking about bands today. And yes, I mean, the reality is, yes, there are bands out there. I mean, and if it depends on the genre you're talking about, but you look at bands like Krungbin, for example. They're not like straight ahead rock, but they're doing really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff that like is coming on NPR Tiny Desk concerts, like Idols, dude. Like what Idols is doing is badass. I don't know if you know them. Mm-hmm. They're like a punk band. I don't know where's Idols from, but somebody in the chat can let me know. I'm a big fan of oh my God, we're gonna have to cut this out. Why am I blanking on the name? Rival Sons. Like the Rival Sons records I really love, Sure. And that's kind of in that like Zeppelin sort of vein of what they're doing. So, but I would also posit that the same thing might have been happening to a different degree back in the 60s and 70s. We only listened to the great bands because those are the ones that really stood out and stood the test of time. But I would say there was just as much like stuff, crap, so to speak, being made. And not to say that someone's music is crap, but there was so much sort of fluff out there back in the 60s and 70s that we don't listen to now because it just didn't last.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious because And I'm thinking mainly in that very much like classic guitar rock band or blues rock band, because a lot of things that I've heard. This again, okay, we should say
can. Zach, this is our podcast. We can talk about whatever the hell we want.
We've been going for like an hour, and I don't.
Oh, okay.
I just, it's hard for me when I'm listening to stuff and maybe this is just me getting older, to just not compare it to everything in the past. And I try not to do that because I can't listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan without hearing Albert King, Mm-hmm. So is it fair for me to like get grumpy at Philip Sayce when I listen to him and just hear Stevie Ray Vaughan? Like, no, that's not fair. But like Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't necessarily play songs like Albert King. He just played guitar like him. It's like, you couldn't swap the singers and it was the same. It'd sound like the same song. So like, those are the things that I want to go down that rabbit hole and find that sort of thing that speaks to me, because people ask me all the time, like, what do you listen to? Like, what's getting you like excited about guitar? And it's like nothing that direction. It's all different, a lot more poppy, and
I would agree with that like there's not a lot that I've heard recently other than like Doyle Bramhall, his latest record from a few years ago, Shades. I really love that record, and that's got me excited about playing guitar. But it is few and far between now as a guitar player. But I would also say that I've been in that vein of listening and playing for so long that I'm probably pretty jaded.
Right.
And I've kind of like it just sort of not turned my nose up at it, but I'm just kind of like, okay, I've heard that 1,000 times before.
Right.
But if I was a young player coming into it now, I mean, I would have a completely different mindset towards it.
Yeah.
You know?
And to that end, I think we should at some point touch on like the retreading of tone, because again, like listening to that stuff, it's just like, wow, this, Rival Sons, even though they're very much Led Zeppelin inspired, like you wouldn't confuse the two.
No, no. And a big part of that is Dave Cobb, the producer. Yeah. Dave Cobb is like the 5th or 6th member of that band, basically. And those records have a sound to them and a feel to them, and the songs. The thing is, like, they have songs. Yeah. They're cool. Like, it's not just about the guitar tone. And I think what you were talking about is more so like the music is in service of the playing.
Yes.
And that's where I lose it. That's where I can't stick with it, because it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all guitar players. We love guitar, right? I love the sound of like a Les Paul into a Marshall. But if the entire song or the entire album is based around the fact that you're just playing a Les Paul into a Marshall and there's not an actual song there, I can't stick with it.
Yeah.
Man, but that's just me.
I'm right there with you. Some of my favorite bands who are like classic guitar bands, like AC/DC, even Jimi Hendrix, some of the like my favorite tunes that they ever had were ones that there's not really a guitar solo. It's like, this is just a fun song, and the song is good enough without it. And like that. I don't know. I think that's something that comes with age and experience and stuff too, as a player and as someone who listens to music. You just can't. You can only listen to so many solos, or at least I can.
Right.
So, but I think we should do some research and come back and visit this and have a real deep conversation about it. Sure.
All right. I'm here for that. Let's do it. What you got a shill of the week here?
I do. And I don't think I've ever I hope I haven't done this. Do you have one?
Yeah,
I got one laying around right here. I was nervous about this because I thought, what do I have at the shop that's not something that's just a pedal? But I have this. I got this on Amazon recently. This is a Fluke Multimeter.
Fluke, man.
Fluke is probably one of the best multimeter brands out there. And this one is just like $50, which is kind of expensive for a multimeter, but it doesn't test, like, you can't use this to like check your outlet in your den or something.
Right.
It can't handle that.
Right.
But for checking your pickups, checking potentiometers, and just checking to see if things are working, because everybody should learn how to use one of these to check your ohms for your pickups, for balancing things and checking your pots and stuff. That's important. But having a continuity tester to check if your guitar is grounded, you just like touch things together to make sure that things are grounded.
Right.
You can solve so many issues with this, and you don't have to spend $50. You can get like a $13 one, as long as it has a continuity tester. And these are things you'll chase problems and then realize, oh, my ground wire isn't connected, and that's why things don't work. And save yourself time and headache. And in your guitar toolkit, Leatherman tool, Allen keys, multimeter.
There you go. I don't have a shill this week.
That's fine.
I don't have one. I'm sorry. I didn't think about it, and there's nothing here on the desk that I want to talk about. So there you go. No shill this week. I'll have one next week. Maybe I'll do 2 next week.
Yeah, double up.
Double up. I think next week's episode might be in person.
Well, should we do it here?
We should do it there. Let's do it there.
The AC isn't great, so we'll be just warm and sweaty together.
Just 2 dudes sweating. I guess I should bring my mic and stuff then. We're going to do that. Well, because you only have one mic.
Matthew has his Roadcaster with 2 little Roadcaster Pro mics and stuff. So
sick.
Steal that.
Look at us. We're going to be like one of those TikTok pages that just all we do is make a podcast so we can put clips on TikTok of us talking about
I thought you were going to say we can steal other people's dances.
People in the chat are saying my shill of the week is the titanium in my collarbone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you set up metal detectors now?
I don't know. I'm about to find out tomorrow morning.
It's funny.
I think I will. What's the thing where you have to walk through? I'm not going to be able to do that. You know, the spinning where you can't, because I can't lift my right hand. This is as high as my right arm will go right now. So I'm just going to have to tell them, like, I can't do it. And plus, you're going to see something in my body that looks like a bomb. It's not a bomb.
Oh, don't say that. Don't
it's not a bomb. Not a bomb. Not a bomb.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
Nice. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for hanging out. Episode 42 of Dipped in Tone. We'll see y'all next week. We're getting back on the trailer here, or on the bandwagon. The trailer. The band trailer.
Getting back in the trailer here, boys.
Get your ass back in the trailer and start working on this podcast again, there, boy.
Don't make me get the hose.
All right.